once you put a bank in charge of, gold and silver, or politicians, look at what politicians did in the 1930s, made gold illegal. If you put politicians or banking systems in charge of these items, then eventually somebody is going to make an assault on freedom and decentralization, which is exactly what's happening today on multiple fronts. Hey, welcome to our Retire Early Life, where we talk about all things that are affecting our retire early life this day and age. Regardless of what life you got, it's being affected one way or another. But before we get started on the Whoppers, let me show you, we're still here. Didn't go very far. There's the beach right there. It's kind of a hazy day, a little overcast. You can't see it that well, just right over that rooftop right there. And they've closed off the beach, as we said in the previous video, and so we can't go to the beach. And one of the reasons we came to Ensenada was to be at the beach, and the beach has been now officially closed multiple times for pretty long periods. This is not a 1 or 2 day or 1 week event. And I don't want to get into a conversation about how it's justified and what the reasons and all that. That's just a different conversation, and people tend to kind of get lost in the details whereas I tend to focus on the bigger picture of how did it get polluted in the first place. Somehow that part of the conversation seems to escape people. But let's get to the Whoppers of the day. Some of these new companies in the alternative exchange space, also known as Bitcoin or crypto, I talk a lot about that because it's the issue of the day. But it's like new companies come out and they're like totally decentralized and totally free, and anybody can get on there. And there's something going on that's been going on for a little while, but I want to point out how a lot of people are being manipulated and misled. You tell me in the comments if you see this, what your thoughts are on this. So this conversation is about the issue of being decentralized or free, or being centralized, which is top down, which is what communism is. So you have communism, which is top down centralization to the extreme, and then you have decentralized, which is simply free entities, free parties that associate together, that associate freely. And so when you have these new businesses, these platforms, I won't mention any names, there's bunches of them out there that have done the same thing. That seems to be a sort of, it almost, when you look at it over a period of time, it almost looks like a kind of agenda. And they start out being free. Now you've got these platforms that if you do a Google, like how to, where can I do this, or where can I trade or buy crypto without know your customer, that's another Whopper I'm going to talk about after this one. But they start out being free, and then they tell you that after a period of time, it could be 6 months, it could be a year, it could be a little longer, but generally speaking, it's earlier than later. Pretty soon, they're telling you, no, it's mandatory. Now we have to, we have to know your customer now. So they get everybody on there. There's an idea going on here that says there's a difference between protecting customers and tracking every move that everyone makes. You can see the difference here. I mean, when you're protecting customers, you're basically protecting against trespassers and evildoers. But when you're tracking what everyone does, you're basically it's the complete opposite. You're limiting everyone instead of only focusing on the wrongdoers. And so that's the concept here. And we're seeing people being sucked out of the decentralized space. A lot of us want to be able to, buy some things, buy some of these cryptos and make all this money off of it and trade and buy and sell and get in and out and do all these wonderful things. But that's how they lure us in. And they lure us in and then they tell us, oh, it's mandatory. So whenever something is mandatory, and especially when it comes to tracking and identifying, and this is all the communist agenda. know that we were all born into this idea, which I'm morphing into the next whopper here. FTX started out decentralized, and you know what happened to that? FTX. And you had other FTX lookalikes that haven't fallen to fraud, but they are playing this game where they onboard everybody and then it's mandatory. Oh no, we can't do that anymore. Now we have to know your customer. We have to have facial recognition on your phone. We have to, this is way beyond protecting the public. It is what it is. And so the next conversation automatically becomes the ideal or the generalization of know your customer in general. Where was that born of? Since we were all born into this system, we have to ask ourselves, well, what kind of a system existed before that? What kind of a system existed before all of this know your customer, which seems to morph into more and more loss of freedoms and rights and more tracking and spying and following, or whatever you want to call it? How does that just incrementally just suck everyone in like that? Whereas in the old days, if we go way back in the beginning, right? Way back, and I mean way back in history. When I go back in history, I go all the way back in history. I don't go back to the 60s or whatever. I go back like 5,000 years. Why not? Why not go all the way back? We can go back as far as you want, or maybe in between. But when you look at the first murder was Cain killed Abel, but that was the first murder recorded in the Bible. And he received a scar on his face. That was a mark, and that marked him as a murderer. Now, this is a key principle here. Pay attention, because everybody didn't get marked. Everybody didn't get a scar. They weren't the murderers. They were the good people. The one that did wrong was the one that received the mark. Cain received the scar as the mark of recognition of the wrong that he had done, and for the rest of his life people would see that he had, and it was on his face where you could see it. And so that's a key principle that we see. It's in the ancient scriptures for a reason, and it's there for us to learn from it and to know that what's happening today is they're trying to mark everyone. They're marking everybody, and with technology they're able to go way beyond just marking. I mean, Cain could have gone out and go into hiding, and would have probably had to go into hiding, being recognized as a murderer everywhere he went. I'm saying that the good people, the ones that were free and not marked, aren't the ones that had to go into hiding or do anything like that. And yet, people are being marked and tracked and sucked into the system, and little by little, and it starts with this decentralization that is a threat to this communist system. And what I'm saying, I'm tying this all together, is that millions of people are getting sucked in to the communism by the very fact that these people are luring us in by saying that there's no know your customer, and it's and we're decentralized, and then 6 months or a year later they're saying, no, we've changed our policy, after they built up their business and they've got enough traffic and enough revenues coming in where they know that once you get hooked on their platforms, and once people, because of the love of money, people won't say, it'll be a lot more difficult to jump off. But a lot of us that have convictions, we will jump off. We'll say, I'm seeing this happen over and over. Maybe this platform thing is not the way to go. And just a private wallet is really the way to go. And we need to be able to build these systems that allow us to be free. Those of us that have a right to be free, those that lose their freedom because they have committed wrongs, murderers and criminals, that's a whole different people. So I just want to warn you, I know not everybody is investing in these coins and wanting to do this trading, and it's so alluring, because even like for FTX, you had like hedge funds and hundreds of millions, investing hundreds of millions of dollars because of the profit motive. And the profit motive is what lures all of these people. And there's nothing wrong with, making money. I'm just saying that this day and age, what's happening is that the decentralized space is being encroached upon by bad actors. And these bad actors are putting themselves out there with the appearance of being good actors and doing something for us and giving us opportunity to make obscene profits, or just large profits, even if they're not obscene, and telling us that we're decentralized and we're free, when in actuality they have an agenda, and what they actually mean to do is take away our freedom. Pay attention, because it's happening. And what they're doing when they do this is they're centralizing. So they're centralizing the decentralized. You see what I'm saying? They're encroaching on liberty. And so we need to be steps ahead of that. More and more what we're getting into is these platforms are all seem to have more of an agenda than just profit. It's like they all start out what seems to be on the right foot, but then in the end, every single one of them ends with the same exact playbook. And you look like outfits like Bybit. Now they're saying it's mandatory. You have to get facial recognition and know your customer and all this garbage like that. And you know where you've seen this? You've seen this at these people that are crossing the border, which is another whopper. And so you see all these people crossing the border to getting the free phone and the free card and the bank card. And I understand on their phone they got the facial recognition, and and they get tracked. And basically what they're doing is they're importing the communism. And so the communism, they tried to get the homegrown communism going, but that didn't seem to be enough. And so now their backup plan is to just simply import the communism and do it that way. And part of that game is to not let you get out free through decentralized platforms and decentralized currencies. And that's why you're seeing all of these outfits out there that are starting out looking like they're helping us out and being decentralized, and then just a little bit later, oh, sorry, no can have, boom, change policy, and you're out. And so what you have is this agenda of divide and conquer, but on steroids and in a global, on multiple fronts from a global perspective. And so that's what we're dealing with. And so how do you overcome something like that? Well, I'll tell you something, you can't. By yourself, you cannot overcome this, but we have the solution, and it's come out from among them. That's the solution. And that's what decentralization does. And that's why the bad actors want to encroach on it and get rid of it. I'm really concerned about some of these solutions. You just know that our freedom is under attack. And so we need to be building solutions that are resilient to attack. And that means they have to remain completely decentralized, like Bitcoin, like gold and silver. They are decentralized. Once you put a bank in charge of, gold and silver, or politicians, look at what politicians did in the 1930s, made gold illegal. If you put politicians or banking systems in charge of these items, then eventually somebody is going to make an assault on freedom and decentralization, which is exactly what's happening today on multiple fronts. And that's why I talked about all of these whoppers separately, to show you the different fronts where the encroachment is going on. And it's at the border, and it's at the decentralization of the money. And so there are some bright minds out there that are coming up with solutions, and one of them is Epic Cash, which is an amazing idea. It's like a copycat to Bitcoin, but better than Bitcoin, because it's truly private. Anyway, I hope you liked my whoppers today. Let me know in the comments what you think about all of this, and stay positive. There are solutions out there. We just need to work together and talk about these issues so that we can come up with solutions and not be subject to centralization of our lives, where we get told we're not allowed to go to the beach because of something they did that they shouldn't have done to begin with. All right, have a wonderful day. Thanks for coming to the video. Bye.